Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be tackling an interesting take on the conflict in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at it through the lens of, believe it or not, profit.
Profit, yeah.
An article titled, Why Supporting Ukraine is a Profitable Investment for Europe and North America.
Mm.
And we're going to unpack that and see what that actually means.
Yeah, it's a fascinating perspective. We often hear about the moral imperative to support Ukraine, which is, of course, hugely important.
Right.
But this article delves into the potential economic benefits for the West.
Right, and that's what we're going to be diving into today.
Exactly.
So the article kicks off by talking about stability and security. And it argues that supporting Ukraine can lead to a more stable Europe, which in turn benefits global trade.
Right, because a stable Europe means a stable global economy, right?
Okay, but how does that actually play out in practice? What's the connection there?
Well, think of it this way. Europe is a major player in global trade,
Right.
like a central hub. When things are running smoothly in Europe, trade flows freely across the world, supply chains remain intact.
Makes sense.
But if Europe becomes unstable, if there's conflict or uncertainty,
Yeah.
then everything gets disrupted.
Oh, I see.
Supply chains break down, we see shortages, prices skyrocket.
So you're saying that supporting Ukraine is like an investment in preventing all of that chaos.
Exactly. It's like taking out an insurance policy on the global economy.
Okay, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Mm.
It's not just about helping Ukraine, it's about protecting ourselves from a much larger economic fallout.
Precisely.
And the article goes on to say that supporting Ukraine can also strengthen democratic alliances globally.
Right, because it demonstrates a united front against authoritarianism.
So, like, backing Ukraine sends a message that democracies are willing to stand together and defend their values.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And that unity can lead to deeper cooperation within organizations like NATO and the EU, which then could lead to even more economic and technological advancements down the line.
So it's like this conflict is actually pushing these alliances to evolve and become even stronger.
That's the argument, yeah.
Okay, fascinating. But let's get into the nitty-gritty here. The article also talks a lot about Ukraine's economic potential. What exactly does Ukraine bring to the table?
Oh, Ukraine has a ton of potential. It's a country with vast natural resources, incredibly fertile land, and a pretty significant industrial base.
Wow, that's a lot to work with.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
They have major reserves of things like titanium and lithium.
Really?
Yeah, which are essential for industries like aerospace and EV manufacturing.
I didn't realize that.
And then there's the agricultural potential. Ukraine is a major global food producer.
Oh, right. I've heard about the wheat and stuff.
Exactly. Wheat, corn, sunflower oil, they're a key player in global food security.
So the article suggesting that supporting Ukraine now could give Western companies a real advantage when it comes to accessing all of this.
Yeah, exactly. They could be the first in line to benefit from Ukraine's economic growth, particularly in sectors like energy, agriculture, and infrastructure.
That makes sense. Speaking of energy, the article also touches on how this situation could impact Europe's energy independence.
Right, that's a big one.
I mean, we all know that Europe has been pretty reliant on Russia for energy, but what role does Ukraine play in that?
Well, it's all about diversification.
Okay.
Europe wants to reduce its dependence on Russian energy, and Ukraine offers a potential solution.
How so?
Ukraine has its own natural gas reserves and huge potential for renewable energy development. Supporting Ukraine in those areas could create alternative energy sources for Europe.
And that could weaken Russia's leverage, right?
Absolutely. It would make Europe less vulnerable to Russian pressure and could even lead to more stable energy prices globally.
Wow. So it's not just about replacing Russian gas. It's about totally reshaping the energy landscape.
Exactly. It's a long-term strategic move.
All right, let's switch gears a bit and talk tech. The article mentions that the conflict has actually sped up technological development, especially in defense and cybersecurity.
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing incredible advancements in areas like drone technology, artificial intelligence, and cyber defenses because of this conflict.
That's interesting. But how do those advancements in, like, warfare technology translate to the civilian world?
Well, a lot of these technologies have applications that go far beyond the battlefield.
Give me an example.
For example, advances in drone technology can be applied to things like logistics and delivery services.
Oh, right. I've seen those delivery drones being tested.
Exactly. And AI developed for military purposes can be adapted for use in healthcare, finance, and all sorts of other industries.
So it's like the conflict is inadvertently pushing us forward technologically.
In a way, yes. It's forcing us to innovate and come up with new solutions, and those solutions can then benefit society as a whole.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all of this ties together. Now, let's move on to another key point, reconstruction. The article emphasizes the massive investment needed to rebuild Ukraine after the war.
Yeah, the World Bank estimates it could cost hundreds of billions of dollars.
Hundreds of billions.
Yeah, it's a staggering figure, but it also represents a massive opportunity.
An opportunity. How so?
Well, think about it. Rebuilding Ukraine is going to require expertise in everything from construction and engineering to technology and energy.
Right.
And Western companies are in a prime position to contribute to that effort.
So it's not just about charity, it's about investing in a market that's going to need a complete overhaul.
Exactly. And those investments could generate significant returns down the line.
It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes, with Western companies playing a key role in that rebirth.
I like that analogy.
But it goes beyond just economic gain, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the article argues that supporting Ukraine now also helps deter future aggression from Russia, maybe even other countries considering similar actions.
Oh, absolutely. By standing up to aggression and imposing costs on those who violate international norms, it sends a powerful message.
Like, don't even think about trying this because there will be consequences.
Exactly. It's about establishing a credible deterrent and preventing a domino effect of conflicts and instability.
Okay, so it's like an investment in global security and stability.
Exactly. And a more stable world is good for everyone, right?
Right. Now, the article also suggests that Europe's support for Ukraine could actually make the EU more influential globally.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, how does that work?
Well, by taking a strong stance and providing substantial support to Ukraine, the EU is demonstrating its commitment to democracy and its willingness to act.
It's like they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Precisely. And that projects an image of strength and unity, which can translate to greater influence on the world stage.
So it's not just about standing up for Ukraine, it's about the EU stepping up as a global leader.
Exactly. And a more influential EU could have positive ripple effects for its allies, including North America.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense. It's like each piece of the puzzle affects all the others.
It's a complex web of interconnected factors, yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground already, and it's clear that this is a multifaceted issue with far-reaching implications.
Definitely. It's not a simple black and white situation, and there are a lot of different perspectives to consider.
And that's what we're here to do, explore those complexities and try to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And hopefully encourage our listeners to do the same.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I think it's crucial to acknowledge the human cost of this conflict.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the economic and strategic aspects, but we can't forget that real people are suffering.
Millions have been displaced, lives have been lost, and the trauma will last for generations.
Right. And any conversation about supporting Ukraine has to include a commitment to helping those affected by the conflict.
Absolutely. It's not just about geopolitics or profits. It's about people.
Exactly. It's about compassion, empathy, and a recognition of our shared humanity.
Well said.
Yeah.
So as we move forward in this deep dive, I think it's important to keep that human element at the forefront of our minds.
I agree. It's easy to get lost in the abstract discussions of strategy and economics, but ultimately, it's about people's lives.
Exactly. And I think that's a good place to pause for now. We've laid the groundwork, but there's still much more to unpack.
Oh yeah, we've only just scratched the surface. There's a lot more to explore when it comes to the potential long-term consequences of this conflict, both for Ukraine and for the world as a whole.
Absolutely. So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve deeper into those long-term implications and consider the different scenarios that might unfold.
We'll be right back after a short break. Picking up where we left off, it's striking to think about supporting Ukraine as a humanitarian investment.
I mean, what do you mean by that?
Well, the article highlights that, a democratic Ukraine
Right.
would contribute to a more peaceful world.
Okay.
And a more peaceful world equals fewer humanitarian crises, less displacement, less suffering overall.
So it's like we're investing in a future where these types of conflicts are less likely to happen.
Yeah, and we're investing in a future
Right.
where resources aren't constantly being diverted to deal with these emergencies.
I see.
Imagine if the resources we spend on humanitarian aid
Uh-huh.
could be channeled into development and progress instead.
That's a powerful thought.
It really adds another dimension to the conversation about supporting Ukraine.
For sure.
It's not just about geopolitics or economics. It's about making a tangible difference in people's lives.
It is. It brings us back to that human element, which I think is so important.
Absolutely.
This whole conversation has me thinking about the long-term implications of this conflict.
Yeah.
How might the world look different in 5, 10, 20 years
Right.
based on the choices that are being made today?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
And the article touches on this.
Uh-huh.
It suggests that supporting Ukraine could lead to a stronger, more influential Europe.
Right.
And if that happens, how does that change the global balance of power? Do we move away from a world dominated by a single superpower?
Right.
And how does that impact the relationship between Europe and North America?
Right. What does that look like?
Will we see deeper cooperation, or will there be some friction as Europe asserts itself more on the world stage?
Yeah, those are great questions. And what about the technological advancements we were talking about earlier?
Right.
How do those reshape industries and economies in the years to come?
Yeah, will we see breakthroughs in renewable energy, AI, cybersecurity that have far-reaching benefits?
God, it's mind-boggling to think about the potential ripple effects here.
It really is.
This conflict could be a catalyst for some major global shifts.
Absolutely. And it underscores something really important.
What's that?
It reminds us that we're not just passive observers of history.
Right.
We are active participants.
Shaping the future.
Shaping the future. The decisions made today
Right.
by individuals, governments, organizations, those decisions will have consequences that reverberate for decades, even centuries.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
It can feel daunting to think about the weight of these choices.
It can.
But this deep dive has really highlighted why it's so crucial to stay informed and engaged.
Yeah, we can't afford to bury our heads in the sand.
Right.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the constant flow of information.
For sure.
But it's more important than ever to make an effort to understand what's happening.
And to engage in those conversations.
Absolutely. We can't be complacent or indifferent.
Yeah, this conflict is a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Even events that seem far away can have a real impact on our lives.
That's right. It highlights how interconnected our world really is.
It does.
What happens in Ukraine has implications for all of us.
For sure, for global security, for economic stability, for the future of democracy itself.
Exactly.
This deep dive has really challenged my thinking.
Yeah.
And it's given me a lot to think about.
Good.
This isn't just a geopolitical conflict.
Right.
It's a clash of ideologies,
Yeah.
a competition for resources, a struggle to define the future world order.
It's all of those things.
And it's impacting everything from energy markets to technological innovation to the very fabric of international relations.
It's a complex web of interconnected factors.
It is.
Each one influencing the others in unpredictable ways.
Well said. I think this deep dive has given us a much deeper understanding of the situation
Yeah,
and its global implications.
definitely.
But before we wrap up, I want to encourage our listeners to continue exploring this topic.
Yes, don't stop here.
Don't just take our word for it.
Exactly.
Seek out diverse perspectives, read analyses from different sources, challenge your own assumptions.
Have those tough conversations with friends, family, colleagues.
Right.
Ask questions. Be open to hearing different viewpoints. Remember, knowledge is most valuable when it's understood and applied.
Absolutely.
It's not about memorizing facts. It's about developing critical thinking skills, forming your own informed opinions.
And don't be afraid to change your mind as you learn more.
Exactly.
The world is constantly evolving, so our understanding should evolve with it.
That's the beauty of learning.
Yeah,
It's a continuous journey of discovery and growth.
I love that.
And it requires us to be open-minded, intellectually curious, and willing to embrace complexity.
Yeah, beautifully put. This deep dive has definitely broadened my horizons
Good.
and sparked my curiosity to learn even more.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about how this one event, this conflict in Ukraine,
Yeah.
has had such a ripple effect.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of just how interconnected our world really is.
Right.
Actions have consequences that extend far beyond their immediate context, and even conflicts that seem geographically distant can have a real impact on our lives.
Absolutely. And this whole deep dive has really underscored the importance of staying informed and engaged with global events.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the news cycle, but we can't afford to just tune it all out
Right?
because these things matter. They shape the world we live in.
Absolutely. It's not about becoming an expert on every single geopolitical issue. It's
Yeah.
more about cultivating a sense of global citizenship,
Yeah.
being curious about the world, seeking out information from reliable sources, and, engaging in those conversations with people about these complex issues.
It's so easy to get caught up in our own day-to-day lives,
Yeah,
and just forget that we're part of something much larger.
for sure.
And I think this conversation has been a good reminder of that.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that interconnectedness.
Right.
And, as we've been discussing the conflict in Ukraine, it's not just a regional issue.
It's not.
It's a global turning point
Yeah,
with the potential to reshape the world as we know it.
absolutely. And that brings up the question of agency.
Hmm.
We're not just bystanders here. We're active participants in shaping the future.
Yeah, that's a key takeaway from this whole conversation.
Right.
Recognizing our own agency, our own responsibility in this globalized world.
And that can feel overwhelming.
It can, but it shouldn't be about feeling helpless.
Right.
It's about understanding that our actions matter, even the small ones.
So what can we do? What can we as individuals do to make a difference in the face of such complex global challenges?
Well, start by staying informed, as we've said.
Right.
Read widely, listen to diverse perspectives, challenge your own assumptions,
Yeah.
support organizations that are doing good work, whether it's providing humanitarian aid in Ukraine or advocating for peaceful resolutions to conflicts.
You're right.
Use your voice, raise awareness, have those conversations.
It's easy to feel powerless sometimes, but you're right.
Yeah,
There are things that each of us can do to
absolutely.
make a difference.
It might be donating to a worthy cause. It might be volunteering your time.
Yeah.
It might just be having those thoughtful conversations with the people around you.
It all adds up.
It does. Every little bit counts.
And, at the end of the day, change starts with each of us.
It does.
Cultivating empathy, understanding a willingness to engage with the world.
Those are the building blocks of a better future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Ah,
This deep dive has really been an eye-opening experience,
good.
and I hope it's inspired our listeners to continue exploring these topics.
Yes, keep learning, keep questioning, keep engaging.
The world is full of fascinating stories and opportunities to make a difference.
So embrace your curiosity, seek knowledge, use your voice to contribute to a better world.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring these complex issues with us. And remember, keep diving deep